Well. Can you believe it? It's Tuesday again. Hello and welcome to Heart and Mind. I'm Dr. Dina McMillan, and boy, it's exciting today because we're going to talk about something that's rarely discussed. And I have to admit, I'm as guilty as anyone. I've been talking about navigating the divide and dealing with people at family events so it doesn't become a big argument. Let's talk about arguments today. Let's talk about winning the argument. So, welcome to Heart and Mind, and let's get started. Now, as you know, no more boring Tuesdays. Usually, I pick Tuesday because most of the time people are not happy on Tuesday. They have the bulk of the work week left. There's not much going on. Nobody's going out doing anything. Tuesdays are now interesting. You can learn something new. You can get real tools for your toolkit to arm you for the rest of the week. So we live stream every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. That's US time. That's 10 a.m. on the East Coast of Australia, which I mentioned because my friend Melinda Richards is normally here. She's actually on vacation in Scandinavia right now. And it's 1 o'clock in the morning in the UK. So for all my friends in London who are watching, welcome all my insomniacs. And if you aren't watching it live, that's fine. The live gives you an opportunity to actually put your comments and questions up and get them answered in real time. But you can also go on Daily Clout. I post the shows on my X feed at Dr. Dina1 on X. You can go on Rumble and you can see all of the episodes. They're all recorded. You can watch them then. Or if you find something useful, you can rewatch it or show someone else. Now, it's important for people to know, and I clarify this each show because it is crucial. I am not a clinical psychologist. That's a difference between a clinical psychologist and a social psychologist. Clinical psychology studies individuals and their perceptions of the world, their emotions, their trauma, whatever. Social psychology, it's a bit different. Now, we study clinical psychology as well. However, our focus is on the brain, how the brain works, how people learn, how they're influenced and persuaded, how they're manipulated, coerced, indoctrinated, and brainwashed, much of it beyond their actual conscious awareness. So, how do you influence people to change their beliefs and behavior without them recognizing that your evil hand is standing there moving and manipulating them? That is social psychology, which is why I always have an evil scientist there. It doesn't have to be used for evil. I think I'm using it for good. But a lot of people that in marketing are social psychologists, the people who design a lot of the gambling games, the ones that are designed to be addictive and keep you from leaving. Those are social psychologists. People who get you to vote for people you don't trust. Those are social psychologists. So I decided the side of the angels needs somebody, a social psychologist on their side, instead of it always going to taking advantage of people. So recognizing, having studied how people are taken advantage of, I can show you what the tricks are and help you keep yourself and your family safe. Now, speaking of keeping yourself and your family safe, here's a book you have to get, The Pfizer Papers. Go on Amazon, get your copy of The Pfizer Papers. Naomi Wolf, Amy Kelly, the whole team put years of work into this, taking those thousands and thousands of pages that Pfizer didn't want the public to see and actually breaking it down so that you understand exactly what was going on, not only during the COVID years, but a lot of that stuff is still going on now. Recognize nobody who took advantage of us through the COVID years, nobody who released deadly vaccines and treatments in hospitals that resulted in untold deaths, nobody's gone to jail yet. So it's not over. You need the Pfizer Papers. So today's topic, once again, and always, I keep telling people, please either live stream, go on my X feed, go on Rumble underneath the show, write down something you want to hear. Most of my topics come about through people contacting me about painful situations or me having conversations in real life with people about painful situations. And I recognize that it's information that most people need. And so I put something together and I share it here on Heart and Mind. And you will not find this information anywhere else. So today we're talking about not just having an argument. How do you win an argument? I'm tired of us just backing down and being nice. Tired of that. And there are costs to always backing down and walking away. So let's talk about what you can do to win. So stay with me. Ever wonder why your brain feels foggy, even when you're eating clean and exercising? It may not be burnout, it could be parasites. Groundbreaking research from Dr. Alan McDonald revealed a direct link between chronic parasitic infections and neurological diseases like multiple sclerosis. Parasites can cause inflammation, nerve damage, and long-term cognitive decline. More reason to do a full body cleanse at least once a year. The wellness company has a solution for you. Ivermectin plus menbendazole. The gold standard parasite solution is now combined in one cleanse combo, designed to eliminate harmful invaders and support your immune system naturally. Medical grade, not some trendy herbal gimmicks. Fill out a quick intake form and get a 3-month supply shipped straight to your door. Maha is officially here, and the wellness company is making hard-to-get medications digitally accessible so you can live your best life. Head to Daily Cloud Health and use the code DailyCloud to save $60 off, plus free shipping on all orders. Cleanse your body today. Now, if you've watched this show before, and I hope you have, if you've watched this show before, you know that I never discuss a problem without also focusing on solutions. So I'm going to give you some real tools to help you lead in the situation instead of always backing down. I have found, and I'm old enough to remember 20 years ago, 25 years ago, when the left progressives started calling themselves woke to be trendy. Somebody recently said, oh, she says woke like it's a pejorative. That's your term. I just found a woman today in one of the No Kings parades wearing a woke t-shirt. I don't see how it's a pejorative except that it represents not thinking, being indoctrinated, being abused. I feel that the progressive left are largely abused. People take the fact that they care about others in society and they misuse that and indoctrinate them and tell them the only way to help these people over here is to harm everybody like yourself and bully those people over there who say, no, we need to do it a different way. No. So we're going to talk about not backing down because that's caused us a bit of problem, the fact that we have backed down. I want to give you some real tools that you can use instead of just backing down. We know that the two sides are getting increasingly divided. That's no secret. You will hear that everywhere. All you have to do is watch the news. And it's not just on different sides of the political divide, culturally, politically, beliefs, and going into the water and trying to put your toe in the water can be incredibly dangerous, especially when people on the left are being told that any attack against someone who doesn't share their beliefs is actually justified. Again, I think they're just being misled. But what it has resulted in, and a few other factors we're going to talk about today, why the left is so angry, why they are so aggressive, why they threaten, why they will actually get physically aggressive if you question anything that they hold out and declare is right and true. Why do they do that? But a lot of us have backed down because it's not worth it. I know in my own family, I have a relative who says, "Oh, nobody wants to debate me." Well, that's because you get this really crazed look in your eye and you look like you're going to attack people. You will say the cruelest things. You'll get physically confrontational, leaning forward. It's like, really? About a term that people are using that you disagree about? Most people look at it and say, that's not worth it. So they just pretend to go along. But I can tell you, if you are daring and left progressive and watching this is the reason Trump won. A lot of people, and my own people, Black people, have to learn this. Because you get somebody to back down in the moment doesn't mean you won. Often it makes them even more fervent in their intentions against you that can be done when you're not in the room. It's short-term gain, long-term loss. But I have been getting this week, I think it was because of the No Kings Parade. I think it's because the protests and everybody on Blue. I went on Blue Sky. I go there, pretty regularly. And oh my God, I was so bullied over there. A woman put down that because I don't agree with her on everything politically, that my whole domestic violence program, I have the only prevention program in the world. It is non-political. I don't do anything, including this show, only for people who look like me, think like me, and vote like me. I do not do that. But she put that I only help people, that my help is all about forcing women to stay in violent relationships. Really? When law enforcement is given me accolades because after having my training, they're not only getting more convictions against the perpetrators, they're keeping their own staff more safe, raising the morale, and giving the victim survivor real tools to understand what happened and not to get hurt again. Exact opposite of what she said, but she didn't just say it to me. She went on her site and posted it. So anybody who saw the discussion where she's calling me names and yelling at me would say, oh, I don't want to go on her program. I don't want to see what she has to offer. She's going to try to force me to stay in this horrible relationship. It's cruel. It's wrong. And a lot of people need help now because they are getting, since Trump won the election, they're getting so much worse. So let's talk about what we can do. And in fact, some of the questions, some of the comments I may have had today, this is a pretty lengthy one because I wanted to give you some receipts that you can use. But some of it, I'm not going to talk about it in as much depth because I have, Dr. J.D. Haldigan, psychologist, J.D. Haldigan, brilliant guy. He's going to be on next week. I'm so excited. Because he has gone against so many in his field and taken on taken on the field of psychology and acknowledging and recognizing and sharing knowledge about the psychological issues that are not only found among the progressive left, but are triggered intentionally by their leadership, encouraged by their leadership, the fear that is encouraged by their leadership. He's brilliant. So I want all of you that are interested today, write down some questions for next week because it took me a while to get him on the show because he's so busy and in demand. And if you see in the green there, I tried to change the color. I am so sorry. If you look up Jordan Peterson's show, you can actually see him on Jordan Peterson's show. So it's something worth watching. So yeah, we've got a lot to talk about today. If you're like me and you're getting to that age where your body just hurts all the time, then listen up. Don't reach for another painkiller until you learn about this little known turmeric hack for pain and inflammation. You've probably already heard about turmeric being used to fight inflammation and joint pain. But here's the thing, not all turmeric is created equal. Regular turmeric powder in your pantry might help a little. But a leading pain doctor from Connecticut discovered a special turmeric extract that is 200 times more powerful than what you'd find in standard turmeric. And when he shared this turmeric hack with his patients, the results were shocking. This turmeric extract attacks pain at the source, turning it off like a light switch so that the pain not only goes away, but it stays away. Dr. Josh, the brains behind it all, has spent over 20 years helping hundreds of thousands of Americans finally break free from constant aches and stiffness. And his turmeric hack has been the backbone of their success. Say goodbye to expensive surgeries, pain injections, or ineffective over-the-counter medications, and say hello to pain-free living. This is incredible stuff. Once I started taking it on a regular basis, I really noticed a difference. But again, you can't just take any old turmeric. So if you want to learn more about Dr. Josh, his turmeric hack, and the exact method for how to use it in your daily routine, just go to goldenrevive.com/dailycloud. The link is right below this video in the description. Just click it and start your journey towards a pain-free, healthier life. Now, if your pain is psychological or emotional, environmental, my business is called Ethical Strategic Solutions. I actually have a business where I offer training and education that includes what I mentioned earlier, the world's only domestic abuse and prevention program, but it also has a lot of components that help with improved response for organizations. So I work with law enforcement and the judiciary, domestic violence organizations, education, healthcare. Unmasking the Abuser is an amazing program, but that's not all we do at Ethical Strategic Solutions. We also have Healing the Rift, a non-political anti-bias program that does not force one set of beliefs on either side or any side if you have more than two. It teaches about what bias is, what it costs us, and how we can reduce it. And it does it in a very fun, interactive way so that people walk away with real tools and not feeling defensive or feeling like they were picked on. Also, since betting on sports has become more popular, gambling harm reduction is also really important. And because I work with domestic abuse, I added gambling harm reduction. I'm a former commissioner, and when I was in Melbourne, Australia, I was the commissioner for gambling and liquor regulation. I had to learn an enormous amount about it. And I took that away and added a gambling harm reduction program to Ethical Strategic Solutions because it's important. For instance, did you know that if you are with someone who has a gambling issue, you are 3 times more likely to have intimate partner violence in your relationship? Contact me. Ethical Strategic Solutions, and the email's easy, ethicalstrategicsolutions@gmail.com. Look how easy that is. I have the website coming up soon where you'll be able to find it, or you can just contact me on X. I always tell people I'm always on X. Contact me at Dr. Dina 1 and just send me a message. But this is really important. I also have books. If you know about an abusive relationship, and for all of you people who are in healthy relationships, or you think, oh, this is for women, it's not for men, understand something. The tactics that I talk about are broadened and used on us as a society. Also, Women can use these tactics too. The tactics are the tactics. So here are two books you can get on Amazon. Brief overview of abusers' strategies and tactics. It's an ebook that you can print out. It has graphics, less than 60 pages. It's like a long magazine article you can use as a quick reference. And then there's my book, But He Says He Loves Me. How to Avoid Being Trapped in a Manipulative Relationship. Now, this book is in several languages, sold in 19 countries, and it also has, if you go on Amazon, you can get the audio version. So if you don't have time to read the paperback, which I promise isn't long, you can get the audio version. So let's get started. Okay. Confrontations have been used very successfully over the last umpteen years to silence dissent. Most of us feel uncomfortable when somebody comes at us. I know I felt very uncomfortable when that woman on Blue Sky started calling me mean names and saying my program forces women to stay in violent relationships. Oh my God, my work does the exact opposite. It's uncomfortable, especially when you're not expecting it. So a lot of us have backed down. And I've even talked, I have 2 or 3 episodes talking about family events, talking about navigating the divide like I did last week. How do you handle dealing with people whose beliefs are very different from yours? And I took the side of diplomacy so far. But I also recognize, and I have to be fair, I recognize that people in the progressive left have been using the ease with which they confront us and become aggressive as a means of getting us to back down. And that has allowed them more of the public space than they would have had otherwise. We've got to stop just backing down, because backing down is often perceived as losing by people who are observing it. We can't be seen to be losing when we have evidence and facts on our side. And it's also important to know, and these are the people I'm going to be talking about when I say winning the argument, because not everybody is a full-blown advocate. Sometimes people espouse the common left progressive values because the mainstream media and perhaps their workplace where they go to school makes it look like that's a battle that was already won by the progressive left. Well, the election showed that that's not true. A lot of people just withdrew from the battle and quietly formed groups and quietly got opinions and quietly got resources to say these people are so wrong and this is so bad. So I want you all to think about this. We're going to talk about how you can win these arguments, because we cannot continue to allow the left to think and treat our culture as though they've won the battle. Swollen limbs, joint pain, inflammation, skin aging, and cognitive decline. These are just a few of the awful side effects that you can experience due to poor blood circulation. To make matters worse, it's highly unlikely your blood circulation will correct itself all on its own, which means your health issues will only continue to decline as you age. And popping ibuprofen isn't a solution to your pain. It's only temporary relief, and it's only masking the true problem, which is inflammation. New research proves there's a potent deep sea supernutrient tucked away 73 miles off the Antarctic coast, which is the hidden key to improving your blood circulation. Researchers are saying you should add this Antarctic supernutrient to your diet. I'm talking about omega-3 fatty acids, but not just any form of omegas. These particular omega-3 fatty acids are sourced from wild-caught krill. The omega-3 content from krill oil has been shown to support healthy blood pressure, circulation, brain health, as well as reduce inflammation, swelling, and joint pain. The benefits go on and on. In fact, some report it outperforms name brand pain relievers, and you can see and feel the results in as little as 7 days. And krill doesn't have the dangerous side effects of ibuprofen. Right now, you can go to getkrill.com/dailyclout to learn more and get a special free shipping offer just for being a listener of this show. Better yet, for a limited time, you can grab Native Path Antarctic krill oil at up to 66% off plus free shipping. Just go to getkrill.com/dailyclout right now and grab your special offer. Now, first of all, as we go into the tips about winning an argument, especially with somebody that's really emotionally invested in their view, understand something, especially if there are other people around. Most of the time, people don't immediately change their mind. What you are aiming for, and because often they're embarrassed, or if you give them receipts, they want to look them up and read them themselves, look at what's available. That's okay. See yourself as planting a seed that can grow. Now, if they are a fervent advocate, it may not grow in their heads, or it might. But if anybody's watching, it could grow in theirs. And again, one of the reasons our society, Western society, has moved so far to the left is that the left was really smart and started embedding very left-wing Marxist ideologues into the universities since the 1960s. So they're training the next generation of professionals who are deciding policy, who are implementing actions and fundings. And this is why it got so bad. And also because when you go to a lot of environments now, including universities, you only hear one perspective. So nobody knows there's an opposing view. You're planting the seed that there's an opposing view. And if you want to know if that's effective, look at Charlie Kirk. When he first started, and even 5 years ago, when he would go to these universities, he mainly got people who opposed him that would come and talk to him. And he attracted maybe a handful of people. Now he gets hundreds. Why? He had the kind of information I'm going to share with you today, and he did not back down. So what I'm saying is, there is a way of handling an argument with someone where you are not seen to back down because you don't have a strong point. And that's what I want to teach you. Again, tell yourself, I'm planting a seed, and with the right fertilizer, that seed can grow. But context is important. Don't discuss heated topics in the wrong place. A meeting, conference meeting at work is not the time to bring this stuff up. What is the time? Go to HR. Tell them I am opposing the organization saying we all have to celebrate A, B, C, and D. That goes against my beliefs. This is supposed to be a neutral, inclusive workspace. That doesn't feel neutral and inclusive. So what can we do? If they get angry with you, if they give you a hard time, talk to them about the fact that there are a lot of lawyers in America, and a lot of them are looking for work, okay? Don't back down. But if somebody is willing to discuss something with you, again, remember, sometimes you've got those advocates that JD's going to talk about, and I'm going to talk about a little bit, that are in that middle, that are just like complete cult members. They are totally indoctrinated and brainwashed. But you also have people who follow certain beliefs because They just aren't exposed enough to alternative beliefs. So much that is paid for, that is wrong, that is bad, that I see as a social psychologist with our current culture has been completely ignored by the mainstream media. And as hard as it is to recognize when something's wrong, it's even harder to recognize it if nobody's saying anything. You may not even know to look. They have worked hard to establish willful blindness about the terrible social, financial, cultural costs of a lot of most left progressive views. So you are going to have to be willing to discuss this with some people, the periphery people, the people who go along to get along but are not 100% sure that view is correct. Those are the people you can have a discussion with. But whomever you're talking to, establish rules. Because one thing I've noticed, look what happened on what they call Blue Cry. Now, I don't usually call it that, but I go to Blue Sky because I don't only want to help with my domestic violence and healing the rift work and anti-gambling work. I don't only want to help people that look like me, think like me, and vote like me. I want to help everybody. So I go to Blue Sky too. But the immediate bullying and pile-ons is just horrendous. So you have to establish rules. You tell the person, I'll discuss this with you, but you're not allowed to name call either me or the people that I support. Because, oh, the left loves to call Donald Trump names, the felon, the rapist, the whatever. You can't have a discussion with somebody like that. Tell them you won't call names to the left leadership. They don't call names to yours. Let's talk about the issues. Let's see if there's something important that either one of us is missing. No name calling, no aggression, and whatever happens, no vindictive action afterwards. So, no, winning requires strategy. Even with the issues I talked about during the holidays, about going to the holiday dinners and not ending up in a big kerfuffle with relatives, that requires strategy. It requires a little bit of planning ahead, okay? But the strategy doesn't have to be complicated. You know, I'm not a big fan of complicated strategies. I think keep it simple, stupid is my credo of my life. I want it to be effective, but I want it to be as simple as possible. Rinse and repeat as needed. Okay, so what do you do? Tip 1, choose wisely. Somebody that is a fervent advocate or somebody who you know has emotional aggression issues is not someone to discuss important things with. Because not only will they not be able to handle disagreement, especially if you make really good points and they don't have the evidence to back up what they say, they won't stick to the rules. Now, realize something else, and JD's going to talk about this. We talked about the fact that the progressive left is especially appealing to people with cluster B personality disorders. That's antisocial personality disorder, bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, histrionic personality disorder, and narcissistic personality disorder. And with all of these personality disorders, the type of narcissism we often come up against is the malignant type, where the person is really angry, and anybody that crosses them, they will stay angry and vindictive forever. I have to deal with this a lot when I'm dealing with perpetrators of abuse. They have malignant narcissism, and it means both they and their former partner could have moved on with their lives, but something triggers them, something reminds them, and they will still take vindictive action years later. These people cannot handle disagreement. They can't handle somebody not going along and just saying, oh, yes, you're right. Again, I have people in my family like this. I never disagree with them like that because they get so angry and nasty and mean, and I know they're not never change their minds. So what do we have here? Let's see here. I have some comments, and I'm trying to get them, But in the meantime, let's move on a little. So we have Nettie saying, I just happened to see you live. Yes, you did. And also said they hate me here in communist Japan because I don't want babies to be injected with poison. It only takes one injection to cause brain damage. I heard the Trump mention neurologically insane people in a clip. Yes, people who look sane but are far from sane. Well, that's the reason I mentioned the personality disorders. And J.D. Howdigan is clinical psychology. He can talk about that with more depth and more authority next week. But yes, people with cluster B personality disorders are usually functional. They're often bright. They can be very charismatic. So they're not the kind that are standing in the corner rocking themselves. These people look sane, but when you see what they support, how they behave, how they handle anyone opposing them. Nettie says it describes her husband. Oh my goodness. We need to talk. If they are opposed, they get horribly angry. No emotional regulation. So if anything bothers them, their hypothalamus, their primal brain goes into threat mode, and their level of anger that they show, the level of aggression, their behavior, their response is so out of proportion that it can be very intimidating. They name call, insult, and attack when opposed. So I want you to be really careful about that. Don't even try to discuss things with these people. Again, they're not the only ones there. There are a whole lot of people who buy into general left progressive values because they thought everybody did. The mainstream media makes it look like everybody does. When you go to a company and they have months that celebrate certain people and saying, we celebrate these people, they look like nobody opposes this. And that's just not true. So the people on the periphery can sometimes be discussed with, but before you get into an argument with them, ask yourself, do they use cruel terms for people who think differently? And that includes people on the Trump supporters who make mean comments about anybody that supported the Democrats, calling them Demonrats and just mean. I don't care what side you're on. If you can make your point, you can make it without being cruel. They declare all people who think or believe differently are bad. That is not the way to go forward. If that's the case, you stick only to your own, you stay isolated, and you don't try to interact in the common space. Now, what has happened, though, is that people that think that way often try to take over the common space that all of us share, and that's not fair. Oh, by the way, in case you didn't see what she has there, it says only, it has the bear, like they had Smokey the bear that used to be on the ads for kids. Only you can prevent forest fires. Hers says only you can prevent fascist liars. Now, if you voted for Trump, how can you go up and have a conversation with this woman? Do they get crazed if opposed? I told you I have family members that they get that they call it, it's like a cluster B hysteria where their eyes get really crazed. And they advocate vindictive acts or violence against anyone that opposes them. I've had so many people on the left tell me that I should have my degrees removed because I voted for Trump. So it's not the case that I may think and believe differently. I'm not allowed to do that. I have to think like you, or I'm not really a social psychologist and I should have all my degrees removed. No, I don't think so. Notice what we're seeing. A lot of people because the leadership is doing it, the average person thinks it's okay. 8647. And this guy's sign, which is, I'm sorry, I couldn't get it brighter, but it says, Army, do your job. 86-47. So they're calling for the assassination of President Trump. Now, we had a lot of people that are Trump supporters with F. Joe Biden t-shirts, but nobody was calling for him to be killed. Nobody was calling for people who voted for the Democrats to be beaten up or thrown out of restaurants. The aggression on one side, there is absolutely no way you can be a rational person, stand back and say, oh, there's wrong on both sides. This is very much like what I see in an abusive relationship. When people are like, well, no marriage is perfect, or both people are wrong and one person is getting brutalized, hyper controlled, in danger, and there's wrong on both sides. No, this is just crazy. So if somebody acts like this, realize the eyes are useless when the mind is blind. Their brain is completely closed. The only time you should still continue what you need to say is if they confront you, will not back down in a public forum. Let's say you're in a meeting at work and they just won't back down. Then you're going to use some of the tools I give you to keep going, because most of the time it's even dangerous to argue with somebody like that. These are the type of people that would later go out and punch your tires or key your car. Okay. They're closed to learning and they may have mental health issues. So be safe in all of this. Only discuss important issues if both sides can remain calm. If it gets heated or aggressive, disengage. Or I have other family members who won't discuss these issues with me, told me I'm exhausting, because when they bring something up, I disagree and I have receipts. They have no backing whatsoever for what they say. That's just what they've been told. You see that a lot in the interviews. They even had people say, oh, I'm here protesting at the No Kings because, whatever they're protesting against, I'm against too, I guess. A lot of people get involved because it gives them a group to belong to. It makes them feel important, gives them somewhere to go, keeps them from being lonely. But with the person in that workplace, if they're going to get really bad, alert HR, alert your boss. Somebody talking about banning assault weapons, this is not the venue. Go somewhere else. I'm not talking about assault weapons. Okay. Tip number 2, try to use their ideals to shape your argument. Did you note last week when I was talking about the young woman I had a civil discussion with at the hairdressers, where she was talking about, the typical pro-abortion line that young women are taught and they're not given any other alternatives. It's never even considered that they could be wrong, that life could begin earlier than they know or that they're being told. Never told there's an alternative perspective that's not those people over there and it's extremists. So here she is. She's got this viewpoint, but I kept asking her, what is your real goal? And then she said, every child a wanted child. I said, okay, well, let's talk from that. So then we started talking about birth control. She started admitting all the health issues she has with the birth control that's there. I said, do you realize all the focus on abortion has taken attention away from the women's rights that are totally being removed through gender ideology? I said, but let's just even stay away from that. The pharmaceutical companies haven't really improved birth control that it's safe to take. If we want every child one step could be really effective birth control that doesn't cause health problems. How easy is that? So we found something to agree on, but I used what she found important, the underlying value, and we discussed it from there. Widen the parameters. I was listening to Talk Like Ted by Carmine Gallo, and it's so funny. Having not listened to it in a while, everybody he's talking up and saying is so good is so left-wing. And so he starts off talking about a guy that got millions of views on his TED Talk, and he works in an organization against unfair convictions and, trying to work on this, completely forgetting the impact on the victims themselves. So a lot of organizations, we want to make sure people don't get convicted unfairly. Yeah, that's great. But we also want to make sure victims aren't put in danger, that their pain is recognized, that their losses are acknowledged in the punishment. Sometimes they get so focused because they're taught to focus only on this, ignore that. So get them used to just widening things a little bit. How do we get a system that's more fair for both sides? How do we make sure that people aren't unfairly convicted, but also protect victims in case we're wrong? Um, Widen the parameters if you can. Now, here's a big deal. Keep receipts handy, covering common topics. Now, I'm going to change the screen in just a second so that you can screenshot this if you want to. But this is the kind of thing I want you to do. I gave myself a half hour and said, okay, let me just put up some of the receipts I've got easily available. I didn't even do much research. But if you find something compelling, save it somewhere convenient. And your phone is usually a good place to save it. Make a little file, receipts, okay? When someone says this and you say, no, I have that, show them. And stay informed. It behooves you to stay informed. Don't be a passive. You cannot afford to be a passive participant in our culture. Passive participation is why the progressive left and the Marxists have gained so much power in our society. We are defending our families, communities, and our country. Okay? And that's wherever you happen to be. I look at what has another way to stay informed. Look what happened in the UK. The UK is just being totally destroyed because they were being polite. They kept backing down when somebody said they were racist. And it has been taken over by a hostile foreign culture, and their own government is allowing it to happen. We should be proud that we actually elected someone who will stand up for us. Canada, we're going to need a wall between Canada and the US. Although we should offer refugee status to some of the people in Edmonton and some of the conservative provinces so that they can come to the States. They'd be wonderful citizens, but oh my goodness, Canada is lost. The more you know, the better your receipts. And this is another reason why I recommend going on X, because if somebody says something that's wrong, they get community noted, okay? But I find a wider range of information. You cannot just Google things. Google is so biased. When I'm looking for information, it is so hard. This is another reason. Elon, if you are watching the show, please come up with a really good search engine, because Google is so biased, and Grok isn't it. Grok is biased too. I don't know who you let program it, but Grok is still biased too. We need something that will be okay. It has to have rigorous methodology. It has to be backed up by science. It has to have more than one study that supports this idea. This is what we need. So we're going to start off here. I'm going to drop out for a second so you can screenshot this stuff. Let me see if it will let me. Can you still hear me? Those of you that are on my comments, tell me if you can still hear me. Because I did this because I wanted you to be able to just have some quick receipts. The propaganda, diversity is our strength. As a social psychologist, I realized this was a big lie. God, when I graduated, by the time I graduated, everything I learned showed this was a lie. The reality, the Tower of Babel is closer to reality. And as for those of you who are not religious, the Tower of Babel is a parable from the Bible where people started building towers to try to reach God, to replicate God. And God said, oh, no, you don't. So God just looked down and made all of them speak different languages so that they could not communicate with each other or work together. There's more diversity of thought on the political right than on the political left. Here's some data. The greater the diversity in the community, the fewer people who vote, and the less they volunteer, the less they give to charity and work on community projects. Again, I'm not, I'm going to go quickly because we only have, we can't go on forever. But I wanted to give you just a few receipts. Now, I always put, it's by Robert Putnam. Look it up. It's New York Times. You can't go get more left than New York Times, but even they had to admit they were wrong. This article is in Psychology Today, but it is all over the journals. That higher rates of mental illness have been found on the far left, not just on the far left, on the left. Okay. And JD is going to talk about that next week. As people who are more liberal, especially those identifying as extremely liberal, are more likely to have mental health issues. Here's Columbia University, the lefty university in New York. Why depression rates are higher among liberals. And politically liberal have long reported lower levels of happiness and psychological well-being than conservatives. And if you go back to one of my previous episodes, I talk about why that is. Over 56% of young white liberal women ages 18 to 29 have been diagnosed with a mental health condition per Pew, which is wide research. Look it up, but have it available. Now, with regard to why the left are so unhappy, it's because it's something I talked about in episode 9 of Heart and Mind, where I told you that in order to control a people through fear, you have to keep coming up with new things for them to be afraid of. Do you notice how much time and attention is given to people who cry on camera, talk about how scared they are of Trump, how all of their rights are going to be removed? So their attention is a positive reward to the brain. So it's not only scaring people who think like them, it's rewarding them for being even more scared. So it's like a race to the bottom. I have told you many times, and it was JD Haldigan who posted this and reminded me of something that I see in my social psych literature. And I kept telling you, you need to remember this term, pathocratic. Okay? It means a small pathological minority takes control through the perversion of moral values and other methods of manipulation, including language. And on the left, you see trans women or women. There is no universe where these men are actually women, but they want to get you to say and think and believe something that is fundamentally, evidentially not true. Another source to get really good information, to get bolstered and motivated about standing up for yourself, Gad Saad. You can follow him on social media. He has a new book coming out called, Suicidal Empathy, talking about cultures who have been taught that in order to be a good person, in order to have a good society, you have to welcome in people who will destroy you. That standing up for yourself is a bad thing. And many people have linked this to the hyper-feminization of society, and I can understand why they say that. Because females are predisposed to work in cooperation and to go along and get along, more so than males, who tend to be more competitive. So teaching everybody that you're just supposed to allow these people to come in as parasites and ruin your society, or you're a bad person, has been very effective in some places. Canada being one of them. He calls it ostrich parasitic syndrome, OPS, rejection of reality and common sense in favor of popular ideals or dogma. Some examples: postmodernism. In case anybody hears somebody talk about postmodernism, it's rejection of objective truths. It's saying everything there's no reality, everything is subjective. Radical feminism, rejection of sex differences. Social constructivism, which says that, people are a tabula rasa. Now that's been disproven decades ago, but it's still, people believe it, that a baby is a blank slate. There are no biological blueprints. Well, actually, science has found the opposite, that a lot of our personality and our perspectives and how we deal with the world are hereditary, are biological, which is why twins who didn't know about each other and were raised separately often have very similar life paths. The OPS cure, accurate evidence and facts, teach how to process information using science and logic. Okay, so are we clear here? Here's some receipts you can have. Now, when you're dealing with how to win this argument, let's get back to that. I'm going to probably go a little bit over. I hope that's okay. Tell them you'll look at their sources if they'll look at yours. Most of the time, if they are a fanatic, they will not agree. They will always find an excuse why your sources aren't valid, which is one of the reasons why when I quoted something, I put, British Journal of Social Psychology. This is not made up stuff, okay? Always have the sources because they're going to try to get around it. Now, they won't have sources for anything they say, and this is the challenge of having so many progressive left indoctrinated people in the universities. They will actually support and have peer review on fundamentally flawed ideology because it fits the narrative that they want to promote. So if you look at the methodology, it will be highly flawed, shouldn't have gotten through. But it will get funded, it will get spread, it will be supported by people who knows it fits that narrative that they want to promote. Now here I've shown you this one before, I'm sure you've seen it, where the guy representing a conservative says, guys, watch out for the waterfall. One guy says, effing conspiracy theorist. Another person says, where's your tinfoil hat? And then the usual line you get from the progressive left, source. Yeah, well, the level of outrage that they experience from you talking about what you're talking about does not equal level of truth. It is attachment to a viewpoint. So don't back down or compromise your principles because they say it makes them feel bad. I don't feel safe. You're not in kindergarten. You don't need to feel safe. If safety means everybody has to agree with you, then you should not come out of your house. Identify shared end goals, like I did with the young woman, a fair society, equal opportunities, whatever. And ask them, has it ever crossed your mind that the approach you have is going to cause as many or more problems than solutions? Is there a way we can work together to figure something out? Stay on topic, because often what they'll do is try to change the subject or look bored or get annoyed. They may change the subject or switch off. Sometimes that means, I wouldn't say push it. I would say before you end the discussion, point out the inconsistencies, contradictions, and double standards. And then if they still want to re-engage, I'd say it's okay to withdraw because you can't force somebody to actually listen. If the point is important and you have rigorous evidence, be willing to bring it up again. It may take more than one discussion, but don't push too hard. Remember, you're planting a seed that will grow. So you're planting the seed and you're not backing down. You're like, I have a lot of evidence for what I believe, and I'm not changing my mind to be like you because it hurts your feelings. I'm sorry it hurts your feelings. But when you're ready for real evidence about how the world works, come back and see me. This is what you tell them. No. You tell them no. And don't spend too much time arguing. It's exhausting. Even when you win, it's exhausting. Take care of yourself. Remember your mindfulness, your walks in nature, laughter. Don't let everything be about that because, again, you're planting a seed. And if you've ever gardened, that if you mess with it too much, it doesn't grow well. You actually have to put it in fertile ground. You may have to do a few things. You may have to put some more fertilizer on it. Your receipts are fertilizer on those seeds. And then you have to kind of walk away, give it time, let it germinate, let it grow. But in the meantime, don't forget, have your mindfulness, your walks in nature, your laughter. Questions or comments, remember, you don't need to just leave them here. You don't just have to have them as I'm doing this live. Please feel free to go online, anywhere you're watching this, and leave your questions and comments. If there's a type of argument you keep coming up against and you don't know what to do, or you freeze in the moment, anything you need to know, I can help you get through it. We need to start pushing back. The election wasn't enough. Most of us are still going through high drama because we do not embrace progressive left beliefs. I want to do everything I can to have you armed and ready so that when you go up against these people, you actually win the argument, because you can stay calm, you can provide receipts, you can stick to the rules, and they look like an hysterical mess. That's what you want. Even if people are like, well, they feel bad, you've planted the seed in the people watching. It's like, why can't that person defend their viewpoint? Why do they think a temper tantrum is the same? The progressive left has taught their people that having a temper tantrum, throwing a fit, performative hysteria and hurt is the same as having a cogent argument. Let's show them how wrong they are. So let's keep going. Heart and mind, thank you for joining me on this super important episode. If you want me to do more, even on this topic, all you have to do is contact me. I'm more than happy to. I want us to get out there. I want us to fight back. I want us to win. You can contact me on X. Just go on X, send me a little note, email me. This is my email address, drdinablog@gmail.com. So everybody doesn't know my email address, but you will. And hopefully I will see you next Tuesday. Thank you, and see you soon.